The first time I heard my name shouted across the canyon, it didn't sound like me. Rose, Rose Hart. The wind carried it, sharp, stretched, torn into pieces by the rocks. For a few seconds I thought it was just my own mind echoing what I'd run from. Then I heard the second shout. Spread out. She can't have gotten far. Men's voices. Several of them. Hooves on stone. The clink of tack. I pressed my back against the rough wooden boards of the abandoned barn, the smell of old hay and dust thick in my lungs, and tried very hard not to throw up. Colt's hand found my good one in the dark. Breathe, he whispered. Slow, quiet. They're closer in their own heads than they are to you. Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one they were calling wife. It started with Cade's shadow at the edge of town. Colt told me about it as he saddled the mare, hands moving with clipped efficiency. They were tacking up down by the sheriff's office when I rode in, he said. Hart men at the front. A few town boys who don't know better behind them. Cade in the middle, looking like a man who swallowed a burr. We were in the cabin, early light soft and harmless looking through the window. Search party, I guessed. Whole valley, Colt said. He's using the storm as an excuse. Says you might be gotten hurt and could be lying somewhere scared and confused. My throat tightened. Are they coming this way? I asked. He nodded. Eventually, he said. Cade asked me to ride with them. Said I know the canyon better than anyone. My heart climbed into my mouth. What did you say? I whispered. I said no, Colt replied. Told him I'd keep an eye on my own stretch of rock and let him know if I saw anything. What did he do? I asked. Gave me a look that said he knew exactly what I wasn't saying, Colt said. Then Hart stepped in and did what Hart does best. Which is? I asked bitterly. Smile like a saint and talk like a man holding a knife behind his back, Colt said. He clapped me on the shoulder and said, If you change your mind, Mercer, there's a place at my table for men who help. My stomach turned. Then, Colt added, he looked at Cade and said, Make sure you sweep the canyon. We don't want my poor girl alone out there with those rocks. His poor girl. I swallowed hard, fingers twisting in the blanket. So they're coming, I said. Yeah, Colt said. Probably not all at once. They'll fan out. Take different ridges. Some'll use my name as an excuse to ride closer than they should. What do we do? I asked. He met my eyes, jaw set. We get you out of this cabin, he said. Today. Where would we go? I asked. You said your place was the safest because no one comes out here unless they have to. That was before Hart pinned a missing bride notice to every wall in town, Colt said. Before his riders started sniffing around, he cinched the mare's saddle, hands moving fast but sure. There's an old Whitaker-branded barn in the North Hollow, he said. Half fallen, but dry. Belonged to a family that couldn't keep up with the notes they signed, Whitaker. My name. Our barn? I whispered. He nodded once. Your daddy kept a second hay shed out there, he said. Used it when the lower fields flooded. Hart owns it now on paper, but he hasn't bothered to tear it down. Too tucked away to impress anyone. Too far off the good roads to matter. I pictured it faintly, Daddy talking about the North Hollow, the way his face softened when he thought about the land before the papers came. Why there? I asked. Because nobody's looking for you on land Hart already thinks he owns, Colt said. They'll be too busy scanning the places where they can show off their concern. And you? I said. If they come to the cabin and find it empty, they won't know whether I moved or you never came, he said. I can make it look like I've just been wandering. He stepped closer. It won't be comfortable, he warned. Dust, spiders, maybe a snake or two that needs convincing it picked the wrong house. I grew up on a ranch, I said. I can handle spiders. His mouth tugged at the corner. At a girl, he murmured. You'll be with me? I asked, quieter now. Far as I can manage, he said. If they drag me into this search party by force, I'll make sure where you are isn't the first place they look. The way he said it told me he'd thought about that possibility more than once. Okay, I whispered. When do we leave? Soon as you can get on a horse, he said. You ride in front of me. I'll keep my hand on the reins and your back. I stared at him. You have an answer for everything, I said. No, he replied. Just for the things I can't stand to leave to chance. Mounting with one good arm is not graceful. We learned that quickly. Colt built a little step out of stacked crates near the cabin, led the mare alongside, and stood close enough behind me that I could feel his breath on my neck. Put your good hand on the horn, he said. Left foot in the stirrup. I'll do the rest. What if I fall? I asked. Then I'll catch you, he said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. I believed him. I did what he said. The first try, my foot slipped, and my shoulder screamed. Stop, he murmured immediately. We're not in a race. Second try. He slid his hands to my waist as I pushed up, taking enough of my weight that my arm didn't feel like it was tearing apart. For a moment, I was half in the air, leaning into him, dress catching on the saddle again like it was determined to ruin my life. His grip tightened. His chest was solid against my back. Got you, he breathed. Somehow, I ended up in the saddle, heart pounding. He swung up behind me with the kind of easy grace that made me jealous and tucked his boots in the stirrups. Lean back, he said quietly. Not far, just enough that if the horse stumbles, I'm already there. It felt intimate. Sitting between his arms like that, his body a warm wall at my back, his hand reaching around me to take the reins. But it also felt safe. If I fell, I'd hit him first. I could get used to that falling. Ready? He asked. No, I said honestly. He huffed a soft laugh. Good, he said. Means you're paying attention. We rode out, following a narrow trail that cut behind the cabin and slipped between two rock outcroppings. Within minutes, the cabin roof was out of sight. Canyons stretched around us. The path wound between scrub and stone, dipping and rising. Every time the mare shifted, Colt's arm tightened just a little across my middle, steadying, guarding. Why didn't Hart tear the old barn down? I asked, more to distract myself than because I needed to know. Can't show off a ruin, Colt said. Hart only cares about what he can boast about. Big herds, new fences, fresh paint. A forgotten building in a hollow doesn't win him points at Sunday lunch. That makes him sloppy, I murmured. It makes him arrogant, Colt corrected. The difference is, arrogant men forget to look down when they're climbing. That's when the ground gets to decide what happens next. I let my head rest back just a little, the brim of his hat brushing my hair. Do you always talk like this? I asked. Like what? He said. Like you've been narrating this valley in your head for years, I murmured. Waiting for someone to listen finally, his chest rose and fell behind me. Depends on the company, he said softly. We reached the hollow as the sun tipped toward late morning. It was quieter here. The canyon walls curved in a gentle arc, sheltering a small pocket of land from the harsher winds. Grass grew patchily along the floor, greener where water collected after storms. And there, leaning stubbornly against time, stood the old barn. It was smaller than the one at Hart Ranch. No fancy paint, no perfect lines. Boards weathered to soft gray. The roof is sagging a little in the middle. The big doors sat at a tired angle, one hanging slightly lower than the other. My chest tightened. I've been here, I said softly. When I was little, Daddy brought me once. Said this was the quiet end of our land. It still remembers you, Colt murmured. We dismounted with slightly more grace than we'd mounted, mostly because Colt did most of the work again. He tied the mare in the shade of a scraggly tree and led me to the doors. Inside, it smelled like old hay, damp earth, and memories. Sunlight speared through gaps in the walls, dust floating in the beams like tiny ghosts. The floor was mostly bare, and a few scattered bales collapsed in on themselves. A spider web glistened in one corner. A swallow darted out through a missing board, startled by our arrival. I stepped in, feeling the weight of years settle on my shoulders. I used to think this place was a castle, I whispered. Daddy said one day we'd fix it up, make it a proper storage barn, maybe even a bunkhouse for hired hands who didn't have anywhere else to sleep. Colt's eyes softened. He was a good man, he said quietly. You didn't know him, I said. Didn't have to, Colt replied. I see the way you talk about him. That tells me enough. My throat thickened. What do you see? I asked. A man who worked too hard, Colt said. Hoped too big, signed his name to papers he thought were a bridge, and they turned out to be a noose. And a daughter who loved him enough to try to save everything he built by sacrificing herself. I looked down at my hands. Never works, he added gently. Sacrificing yourself to feed a man's greed, all it does is make him hungrier. I nodded once, swallowing hard. Thank you, I whispered. Seeing him, even from far away, he glanced around the barn, assessing. We'll set up in the loft, he said. Less obvious if someone decides to nose around. There's a ladder in the back that's almost safe. Almost, I repeated. I'll go first, he said. You just don't look down. The ladder was old but sturdy enough. I tested one rung with my bare toes and felt it creak. You sure about this? I asked. Not even a little, he said, but it's still better than sitting in the open. Comforting, I muttered. I'll be right below you, he added. If it gives way, I'll break your fall. I looked back at him. You can't keep promising to catch me, I said. What if I'm the one who has to catch you? He smiled, really smiled, for the first time since I'd met him. Then I guess we'll both find out how good your reflexes are, he said. We climbed. He went first, showing me where to put my feet, testing each rung before I stepped. My shoulder protested, but I kept my injured arm tucked close and used my legs more than my hands. At the top, the loft opened out under the sloping roof. Old hay lay in piles, soft and dry. The air was warmer up here, smelling of grass and sun and time. Reckon we can make a nest, Colt said. Move some of this around. Make it look like rats did it, not runaways. Rats, I squeaked. Figure of speech, he said. Mostly. He helped me settle in a corner where two beams met, giving me a view of the main doors through a gap in the boards. Then he climbed back down to lead the mare a little farther away, hide the fresh prints, and wipe away the obvious signs of new life. From the loft, I watched him move through the shafts of light, small down there, but sure. A man who knew how to make himself part of a landscape without leaving too big a mark. A protector who'd learned how to disappear when it kept others safe. If you've ever had to hide in a place that used to feel like home, you know how strange it is to see old memories and new fear sharing the same air. If you want to hear what happens when Heart's riders fan out through this hollow, and how close Silas himself comes to the ladder we're hiding behind, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next heartbeat. And tell me in the comments, would you feel safer in that cabin, or up here in this old barn, on land that used to have your family's name on it? We didn't have to wait long. The first sound was distant, a kind of soft thunder rolling across the hollow. Then came the voices. Check down by the old barn. Why? Hart owns half this valley now. She ain't stupid enough to circle back. Orders are orders. Colt was back in the loft by then, breath even but eyes sharp. He'd pulled an old tarp toward our corner, streaked with dust and bird droppings, and draped it loosely so it broke up our shapes. He glanced at me. Remember, he murmured, no matter what they say, you stay put. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my teeth. What if they recognize your saddle? Or your mare? I whispered. I swapped the saddle out for an old one and rubbed her down with dust, he said. From a distance, she looks like any other half-starved canyon nag, boots thudded outside. The barn doors creaked, protesting as they were pulled wider. Light flooded the floor below. I instinctively shrank back into the shadows. 3 men stepped in. 2 wore Heart's colors. One was older, shoulders a little stooped, hat pulled low. Place is falling apart, one of the Hart men snorted. Figures, boss owns this too? The younger one asked. On paper, the older rider said. Been letting it sit. Says maybe he'll turn it into storage one day. They fanned out, boots scraping on the boards. Rose, one shouted, voice echoing off the rafters. Rose Hart, you in here? The name cracked through me like a whip. My fingers clenched in the hay. Colt's hand brushed the back of mine under the tarp. Just a small, steady contact. A reminder, you're not alone. Don't move. I didn't. The younger Hartman kicked a collapsed bale. She ain't here, he muttered. Girls probably crow food by now if she hit her head out there. Boss says she's alive, the older rider said. So we look like she is. The third man, stooped shoulders, moved slower. He paused by one of the support beams, running his hand over the old Whitaker mark burned into the wood. Heard Whitakers had a girl, he said quietly. Pretty little thing. Always in the yard, running after chickens. My throat closed up. That's her, the younger man snorted. Same one. Hart turned into a lady. For all the good it did him, the older rider shot him a hard look. Watch your mouth, he said. He pays us too much for you to talk like that. What? The younger shrugged. I'm just saying, if she wanted to run, maybe she wasn't as grateful as he thought. Stooped shoulders kept his hand on the brand. Some folks don't understand what they sign till it's too late, he murmured. Doesn't mean they deserve the rope that comes with it, the older rider sighed. You getting philosophical on us now? He grumbled. Stooped shoulders lifted his gaze toward the loft, right toward where we were hidden. My heart stopped. For a moment, I could have sworn his eyes met mine through the gap. Then he looked away. Barn's empty, he said. Let's go tell Hart we checked it. The younger man snorted. Fine by me, he said. Place smells like ghosts. They turned. All three headed toward the doors. Relief started to seep through my muscles. And then a fourth shadow cut across the light. Well, a new voice demanded. Smooth, cold, familiar. Silas. Every part of me went rigid. Nothing here, Mr. Hart, the older rider said quickly. Just an old shed, dust and spiders. Silas's boots sounded different, more measured, more deliberate. He stepped inside, and the air felt colder instantly. What about upstairs? He asked. Silence. Rafters look like they could hide someone, he added. Or something. He walked farther in, the boards creaking under his polished boots. Rose, he called, voice smooth as river stones. Sweetheart, you know this place, don't you? Your daddy talked about it. I shut my eyes. He kept talking. You must be tired, he said. Scared, maybe confused, hearing things that aren't true. People who don't understand our arrangement, telling you lies about me. His words slithered up into the loft like smoke. Colt's hand closed over mine, firmer now. I forgive you, Silas said, louder, for running, for embarrassing me in front of the town. I know it's not your fault. You've always been sensitive. Anger snapped through me, hot and clean. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something heavy and hard right at his carefully combed head. I wanted to jump down there, shove the ring in his face, and tell him exactly what kind of man he was in front of all his riders. But if I did, this story would end very fast, and not in my favor. Silas walked a few more steps, boots tapping. He stopped almost directly under our loft. If you come out now, he said softly, I'll make sure everyone understands you weren't yourself, that you had an episode, that the stress was too much, like my whole life was just a moment of bad weather he could explain away. If you keep running, his voice cooled. I can't promise everyone will be so forgiving. The threat sat there, naked and quiet. He waited. I held my breath till my lungs burned. After a long, stretched moment, he clicked his tongue. Nothing, he said, turning away. Let's move on. She's not smart enough to circle back here, the younger rider laughed. Maybe she found herself a canyon rat to hole up with, he said. Silas paused at the door. If she did, he said calmly, then we'll find them both. Then he stepped out into the light. The barn doors creaked as they swung mostly shut again. Hoofbeats faded. My whole body shook. Colt didn't let go of my hand until the last echo died. We stayed in the loft until evening, just in case. At some point, the adrenaline crash hit me. My limbs felt heavy, my head light. Colt convinced me to lie back on the hay, his coat rolled under my head as a makeshift pillow. Close your eyes, he said softly. Doesn't mean you're not ready, just means you're not made of stone. I must have dozed, because when I opened my eyes again, the light slanting through the gaps in the boards was deeper, more gold than white. Colt was staring out through one of the holes, his posture alert but not as rigid as before. I think they're done with this hollow, he said quietly. For now, I echoed. We'll stay the night anyway, he said. Don't want to walk right back into whatever pattern they're writing. I shifted, wincing as my shoulder reminded me it still existed. Something outside caught his eye. What is it? I asked. He frowned, then gestured for me to join him. Careful, I crawled over, keeping low. Through the gap, I saw it. Down near the base of the hill, just where the path into the hollow widened, a small stack of rocks had appeared. 3 stones, one flat, one smaller, one leaning at a sharp angle. They hadn't been there when we arrived. That wasn't there before, I whispered. No, Colt agreed. It wasn't. What does it mean? I asked. He studied it a moment. Depends whose code it is, he said. To some, it says nothing to see here. To others, search moved on. But with that button in my pocket, he tapped his coat. And that mark on the tree. I'm guessing it's our quiet friend again. The second rider, I said. He nodded. Looks like they're telling us the party went that way. He pointed down a different trail. Which means, for now, this hollows off their list. Why help us? I asked. Maybe they're not helping us, he said. Maybe they're helping themselves. But either way, their path keeps crossing ours in ways that keep me curious and cautious. I asked. Always, he said. As night fell, the hollow darkened into shades of navy and charcoal. Crickets started up. An owl called from somewhere high on the canyon wall. Colt lit a lantern, turned low, and set it against a beam so its light barely brushed our faces. You should sleep, he said. Long day. So should you, I retorted. He gave a quiet huff of laughter. I'll sleep in shifts, he said. Habit. I watched him for a moment, the way the flickering light softened his features, the lines around his eyes, the set of his mouth. Colt, I said. Yeah, he replied. I'm sorry, I said quietly. For almost moving when Hart stood under our floor, he said dryly. Or for bringing his troubles into my canyon in the first place. Both, I admitted. Mostly the second. He leaned back against the beam, stretching his legs out, boots crossed at the ankles. Rose, he said, if you say sorry one more time for running from a man who would be locked your mind in a box and wrapped it in pretty paper, I'm gonna start charging you a nickel per apology. Charging me? I sniffed, half laughing, half crying. For what? For the cost of pretending you did something wrong, he said. It's expensive for both of us. My throat tightened. I don't like that he's dragging you into this, I whispered. He dragged me into this when my brother disappeared, Colt said. You just gave me a better reason to stop pretending it wasn't my fight. I looked down at my hand, at the faint indentation where the ring had been. I tucked it safely into my makeshift pocket earlier. What if he never lets this go? I asked. What if he keeps looking until he finds me? Until he hurts everyone who helped me? Colt's gaze met mine, steady. Then we make sure that by the time he gets close, he said, he's the one standing on ground that can't hold him. I swallowed. How? I asked. By doing exactly what we're doing, he said. Watching, listening, following tracks, finding allies who aren't impressed by his money or scared of his story. He tipped his head toward the window. That second rider isn't the only one, he added. Men talk in the shadows of the diner. Women talk over coffee. Cade listens. Marla watches. You're not the only person in this valley who'd be better off if Harda's grip loosened. I don't want anyone else getting hurt, I whispered. Sometimes, he said softly, the hurt's already there. You just finally see it. Tears spilled over before I could stop them. He didn't pretend not to notice. Instead, he shifted a little closer, careful of my shoulder, and opened his arm. I hesitated. Then I let myself lean into him. His chest was solid under my cheek. His heartbeat, slower than mine, but strong. His arm came around me, warm and secure, hand resting lightly on my upper arm. For a few seconds, I just breathed. You're allowed to fall apart some, he murmured into my hair. Doesn't make you weak. What does it make me? I asked thickly. Human, he said, which is more than I can say for Hart most days. I laughed wetly. Thank you, I said. There you go again, he muttered, but there was a smile in his voice. We stayed like that for a long time, not kissing, not speaking, just two people who'd been running in different directions, finally letting themselves be still for a minute. Sometime in the deep part of the night, a new sound cut through my sleep. Hoofbeats, not in the hollow, above it, on the ridge. I jolted awake, heart lurching. Colt's arm tightened instinctively, then loosened as he woke too, muscles snapping to attention. Stay here, he whispered. Don't move. He crawled silently to the loft edge, belly close to the boards, and peered through the gap. The hoofbeats slowed, then stopped. Voices drifted down, faint but clear in the still air. You sure she ain't with him? Mercer's stubborn, not stupid. He wouldn't cross Hart for some girl, man like that. A laugh. You seen how he looked at Hart in the diner? I'm telling you, he's storing trouble for later. We go back without her again. Hart's gonna start using that word replaceable. Silas's voice cut through them all. I don't want excuses, he said. Calm, cool, clinical. I want results. The longer she stays out here, the more time gossips have to twist this into something it's not. What is it then? One of the men asked bravely. A misunderstanding, Silas said. One I intend to correct. Silence. Then, if Mercer is involved, Silas went on, we'll know. Men like him think the canyon makes them untouchable. It doesn't, my pulse thundered. Colt's shoulders tensed. We'll widen the search tomorrow, Silas said. Move beyond the usual paths. She knows this land better than I gave her credit for. We'll make sure there's nowhere left for her to feel safe. The word chilled me. Hoofbeats started again, moving along the ridge. Colt stayed frozen until the last echo faded. Then he exhaled slowly, turning his head just enough to look back at me through the half-dark. Tomorrow, he said quietly, they're going to start looking in places even I don't like people finding. You mean here? I whispered. Here, he nodded. And beyond. I swallowed hard. What do we do? I asked. His gaze was steady, clear. We stop just trying to stay ahead of him, he said, and start making sure he's the one who doesn't know what's coming next. Can we? I breathed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the brass button with the circle and slash mark, held it up between us. We're not the only ones who want that, he said. The barn creaked softly around us, tired but still standing. The hollow held its breath, and somewhere in the dark, on some other ridge, I imagined another horse standing still, a quiet rider watching, waiting, deciding which side of the story they'd ride for when the real showdown came. When I tore my veil and rode out of Hart Ranch, I thought the only thing chasing me would be one man's anger. Now an entire valley is moving, search parties sweeping the hills, a sheriff walking a thin line, a mysterious rider leaving secret marks in the dust, and a canyon cowboy quietly wrapping himself around every crack in my world, holding it together while I shake. Tomorrow, Silas widens the search. He thinks he's closing in, but he has no idea how many eyes are starting to watch him back. If you want to hear what happens when the search pushes us out of hiding, and the first real evidence of what happened to Colt's brother comes to light, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss episode 4, Whispers in Willow Creek. And tell me in the comments, if you were in my boots, would you keep hiding in that hollow, or ride into town with Colt and start whispering your side of the story first?